Language and literacy can go beyond words and speech. I was sitting in class when option 3 for this project was introduced, and promptly the idea of a draw my life formatted video popped into my head. I thought it would be an easy way to depict all my thoughts and experiences. Throughout my life, I've had many literacies, ranging from music to sports, and so on. But the medium that connects everything is undoubtedly knowledge of multiple languages. To better understand how multilingualism has impacted my life, I need to explain my origins. Sure, an obsolete town in Northern Virginia is where I was born, but that isn't my origin. My origin ties back to something much more in-depth, where my native language comes from. My parents came from Beijing, China, bringing with them Mandarin culture and a whole different perspective along with them. They began to educate me in both languages around the time I was 3 years old, with the two being used in equal proportions. I learned my ABCs the same time I learned how to say mama in Mandarin, which equates to mom in English, except for the nostalgic family feeling that comes with the Chinese version. Around the time I was 4, my parents had their parents mail me some math and science textbooks from China for me to study along with the English ones we already had. I dreaded it every day because my parents would yell at me for hours if I got anything less than a perfect on the end of chapter reviews. However, in hindsight, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not only did I fly through these books, I was through with middle school math and science before I turned 7. At the same time, my brain was constantly being pushed to learn methods from two cultures. There was a fine boundary between two styles of education. This generated a broader creativity and more mature critical thinking in me. I was able to solve problems in school much more efficiently than I should have. The generation of creativity was also apparent when I started taking violin lessons from a Chinese teacher, and my parents forcing me to practice violin for 9 to 10 hours a day. I began elementary school in Syracuse, New York. The second significant instance of language playing a part in my life was in kindergarten. There was a kid who had just moved from China to the US and did not know a shred of English, similar to how my brother was. His name was Song Tao, and the English second language teacher struggled to communicate with him. Naturally, she looked for many ways to get through to him before ultimately realizing that I spoke the same language as he did. She pulled me out of class one day, and I kind of took him under my wing for the next 3 years until he was able to speak sufficient English on his own. This is also the same time frame for when I began reading English novels and Chinese proverbs derived from folk tales. I specifically remember one tale titled Waiting for the Snow. A child in a wealthy family took everything for granted, so his father told him that once upon a time, there was a poor child who was not fortunate enough to have oil lamps. Thus, the poor child utilized the brightness from the snow to study late at night. A day passed, and the father found the wealthy child sitting at his desk idly once again, so he asked, "Why are you not studying?" To which the son responded, "I'm waiting for it to snow." Over the past few years, I have had various encounters with language regarding new people who proved to be significant to my life, of many different nationalities. First and foremost, I met a super buff Honduran middle-aged guy at my gym who taught me many life lessons over the past few years. He came from a horrible background and created a great identity for himself. I insisted that he convey all of his mentalities and lessons in Spanish, his native language, and evidently, he felt more comfortable and talked in a much more holistic aspect. I understood the gist of his words every day as I was studying Spanish in high school, so I did not need to focus on only understanding the denotation of his words. I was able to pick up on the emotions and truly understand the heart he was putting into expressing his experiences. Another instance that I noticed a foreign language playing a part in my interactions was whenever I went over to my Indian friend's house. I quickly noticed that whenever a sensitive topic arose, he would promptly speak to his parents in Telugu. It was a formality, as if things got serious when he asked to use the car when he was grounded. Therefore, whenever a confrontation with his parents began consisting of words I did not understand, I knew it was time to get my friends away from his stress. I am currently taking Japanese 1201. The teacher speaks very formally to the rest of the class, but because I have mastered the language and its devices very quickly, Nagano-sensei feels like she can crack jokes in her native language with me. She often jokes about me laying my head down in class. I feel like because of how accustomed I am to language in general, I am able to quickly transcend the first boundary of language, which is limited to tense small talk, and dive straight into the second level of language that is made up of people having real conversations like joking or talking about abstract ideas. This makes me build bonds and empathize with people very easily, no matter how well they speak English, and no matter where they are from. I'm able to communicate with people in a way where grammar becomes second nature, and I can focus on understanding the underlying feelings behind what someone is wholeheartedly saying. Language has ultimately made me a critical thinker, creative problem solver, better listener, and more empathetic person. And I can without a doubt say that all of this has made me happy.